Welcome to Debt to Cinema. I'm Stephen Mominex.
And I'm Brian Gillis. Like most people, we love going to the theater and catching latest releases. However, sadly, put a big dent in our wallet.
Fortunately, living in the digital age makes the viewing possibilities endless from the comforts of home.
Many of these films that you can see right from your couch, we're ashamed to say we miss, despite labeling ourselves cinephiles.
So join us as one or both of us cross off a title from our list of shame.
It can be an all-time essential classic,
Or an underrated piece of cinema that's worth giving a shot.
hell, it might just be some trashy film we want the others' opinion on. So sit tight and join us as we pay off our debts, $1 at a time.
This is a world of hidden mics and two-way mirrors. A world where nothing is private.
Do you think we can do this?
Later in the week.
Do you think we can do this?
Harry Cole is an expert. The best there is.
Let me tell you something about Harry Cole. The best, bar none. I'll drink to that.
Best what?
The best bugger on the West Coast.
What about me?
He can bug anybody, anytime, anywhere.
Nobody knows how you did it, though, Harry. Caused a hell of a scandal, too.
Look, do you see him? The man with the hearing aid, like Charles. He's been following us all
They're
along.
not people to him, just voices.
3 people were murdered, that's all.
He doesn't know them, and they don't know him.
I do personally find it just a little bit funny, and you kind of sort of started this, at least this interest in my mind, with All the President's Men and just kind of how things keep going back to Watergate, and then my interest in revisiting Frost Nixon. And it's not so much that this movie, when it came out, it kind of was loosely tied to that, even though it was by sheer coincidence. But I think just this idea of things happening in politics, and I don't know, it's just funny how that kind of influences my line of thinking right now.
Don't you know that things go in cycles, just the way that Bobby Brown is amping like Michael? This is for the Quest. Quest got the book in. Come on, everybody. Let's get for the book in. Come on, everybody. Let's get with the flag. Sorry, bad tribe karaoke.
I got the first part of what you were saying, and then you completely lost me. But
It's tribe called Quest lyricism. Things go in cycles, like everything. And
Yeah, it does.
Nixon
It's
and
just-
Watergate's
it's
like
weird
making a comeback,
experiencing it,
and the way the media probably boomed when cable was coming out is kind of the same kind of transitional periods that we're going through currently with the advent of streaming, and better than that, just cord cutting in general, and how the internet's become ubiquitous. And these kind of fears that this film raises about surveillance, look at them even outside of Watergate and Nixon, and kind of that fascination that, yeah, maybe I began with All the President's Men. Look at something like Citizen 4 or the real wiretap type things that NSA was doing with Yahoo just less than a year ago.
Well, I mean, that's specifically, and I mean, the idea here, it's loosely tied to the theatrical release for The Circle. It's just this idea of surveillance, really. But I mean, yeah, just this idea of like there being no privacy, like it just, I mean, the way that it's communicated in just with that, especially that opening shot of this movie, just this overlord shot of just like looking at a crowd, like of complete strangers, and
Being
then
able to pinpoint one singular conversation.
yeah, of people like just being spied on, and nowhere is safe. And this is in a time where they don't even have smartphones or anything like that. Like there's still this sort of paranoia that you're being watched. It's crazy how timeless this is in that sense.
It's weird though, because I still haven't seen it or its remake. But as you kind of pointed, everyone just believed, just because this film came out, I think like a month or two after Watergate happened, or not necessarily happened, but once the investigation began. And it's like, no, Francis Ford Coppola came up with this script in the mid-'60s. Like, he saw Michael Antonioni's blow up in like 66, 65, and then he was like, well, what if instead of being photography, it was audio surveillance? And so he sat on a script for basically a decade until he made The Godfather, and he had enough clout to his name that he could get this thing off the ground.
Yeah.
But apparently, like when he did Finian's Rainbow, there's an interview out there where someone asked him, like, "Oh, what's your next project?" And he goes, "Oh, it's called The Conversation." It's like that didn't come true for like 8 more years. But
yeah, like I mean, this had to have been like some sort of passion project where like. Just after The Godfather, you know, he has enough clout after the experience of making that movie where just nothing was going his way and there were fights in there, and then
not to
he
mention
gets complete creative control on Godfather 2. But it's insane that this came out that same year and
The
that he got
same
to make
year.
this in between, like this fairly small character study, and then he goes back to doing something like big and epic like The Godfather,
Even-
just this period piece, which is so lush and cinematic, and yet this feels so rough and just very much of its time in a way that's also timeless and still holds up today.
Even beyond that, though, just the people here that are present in the Godfather films. Robert Duvall has a little cameo. The Shire family's connected in some way or other. David Shire here doing an awesome score, which was actually
Yes.
composed before the film was even shot, which never fucking happens. That's
The
bizarre.
score for this movie, man, like just for something this small, it's such
too
an
good.
interesting mishmash, just like of like just this very just dissonant jazz-like score that has like no harmony whatsoever, but yet it's still so emotional at the same time that you know just really gets you inside this character and like just sums them up really well as far as what's going on in their head, like especially with Harry Cole, just like how you know he has this probably the one thing that you get close to like an artistic ambition or just something that he really appreciates, that he
playing the
personally enjoys.
saxophone.
Yeah, and just jazz in general, and like that's the one thing that like really gives him any peace whatsoever in his life, which is a complete fucking mess, and it's just like a beautiful kind of mess in a way.
I think it's so bizarre where this film kind of sits in history, because I hadn't seen it for the longest time, and I'm not exactly sure. You know, it's just one of the selections on the show. It's like, well, why hadn't you seen it? Fuck if I know. I just
Well,
you
a
know,
lot of people
I hadn't
haven't.
seen it.
Like this was a Best Picture nominee. It's one of those great movies.
It won
that
the
people
Palme
forget.
d'Or.
Yeah, like until people talk about it, like again after seeing it, they're like, yeah, no, that's still fucking great. But you know, Godfather 2 is going to be talked about when it comes to like winners of 1974.
Yeah, this
especially directed by Francis Ford Coppola.
This went up against Godfather Part 2 for Best Picture, which is just kind of funny.
He got 2 movies
Yeah, no-
nominated in 1 year.
no
man.
one does
Like,
that.
He
That's
was at his
insane.
height at that point.
And it also very, very narrowly beat out Jack for me to be my new favorite Coppola film. Maybe I don't know. I'm so connected to Jack. I love that film. Jennifer Lopez, Bill Cosby, Robin Williams.
I still have not seen it.
It's so good. It's so bizarre just to see that and to think in your head, this is the guy that made The Godfather and Apocalypse Now. And now the conversation's like, whoa, that's a fucking 180, 100%. You got to see it. It's good. It's very
He's been
unique,
very
too.
good about experimenting, like even in his work now, even if it hasn't
Well, who
really reached
watches
out to
his
people.
stuff
He
now?
doesn't repeat himself though. Like that's the
I
thing with
respect
Coppola.
that.
Like it
I
doesn't
just-
seem like many movies are the same, and I like that he doesn't feel like he has to anymore. He can do whatever he wants.
Yeah, you can 100% fund everything just through the fucking wine that he sells. So
Yeah.
he does, look at his family. Look at the Coppola, Cage, Schwartzman, Shire family. The Hollywood 3.0 like Renaissance men. Everyone is writing, directing, acting, composing, producing. They all do it. Doesn't matter if they're a guy, a girl, Jewish or Italian Jews. I don't even know how that family is composed, to be honest. It's so
I don't know
so,
how they all
confusing.
relate to one another in which way or I
Well,
don't know.
Sophia is
That's
Francis
the daughter
Ford's
of
daughter.
That's the big one. Who's Roman Coppola?
Roman is, I think it's Sophia's older brother. Nicolas Cage is Francis Ford Coppola's nephew. Schwartzman is also his nephew because Jason Schwartzman is Talia Shire's son.
Wait, really?
Yeah, Talia Shire
didn't
is
know
Francis
that.
Ford Coppola's sister. That's the the star of Rocky, among other things. And
She was also, I think, the wife of Sonny in The Godfather, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. She
Yeah.
stars in The Godfather, which is just bizarre. Who puts their sister as the love interest in their first big movie?
Well, when it's
but,
James Caan, right?
huh?
It was James Caan that was the love interest, I think, for that one, right?
No, I'm talking about Al Pacino's girlfriend. Like,
No. That
Wife.
was what's her name? Shoot, who played Kay? I'm gonna hit myself on that one. I wanna
it's,
say Diane Wiest or
it's
no
Diane-
Diane.
yeah,
Yeah,
You got
what's her? Keaton.
Keaton, yeah.
Yeah,
No, I haven't seen those movies in so long, and I've only seen them once, so like my memory
They're great,
is
man.
hazy at best. But yeah, Talia Shire is in The Godfather, among other things. I mean, that family's all over the place. Like, I still love that at least Nicolas Cage removed the name from his career before it began. Like in Fast Times at Ridgemont High,
it says
He's-
Nicholas Coppola.
yeah, that's like his
Yeah.
one of his only billings in the family, and then he quickly ditched that before he became, because he doesn't even have a line in that film. He shows up for a second. Let's leave that in the dust though. Not the topic on hand. It's interesting. We're talking about Watergate and how this is like connected. It's so strange. It's too unbelievable not to be true type of shit. The surveillance equipment in this
The
film,
process of taping it, yeah.
just everything about it, like literally the same equipment they used was used by Nixon's staff at Watergate. Like,
and it just happens to be by happenstance.
That's so cool and so bizarre in the best kind of way. It's like, oh, no shit, people thought this was about that. And even still, you could see it, like, I guess, even though we're so far removed, like, who, but outside of us bringing up All the President's Men a couple of weeks ago, or, yeah, like, Forrest Gump happening and passing, or as you said, like Frost Nixon, like these moments in time where Richard Milhouse Nixon is relevant for some reason or other. I guess just this presidency. The only thing that is more interesting than that is how this is essentially an Enemy of the State prequel.
I want to watch that movie again now because, I've not seen it, I think, in about a couple of years, but I've never watched them closely enough to think that, or just to see what the threads are.
There's very obvious connections, even if it's never referred to in that film by Tony Scott.
Yeah.
Just the nature of Gene Hackman being a dude who is a loner with like really weird fashion. Like he wears the raincoat.
And he has a history of like living in New York because
exactly.
they refer to that here. I can't even remember if they mentioned his name, but then at the same time...
They mention his name. It's not the name here, but it's like after...
But he could have changed his name
exactly.
at that point. For this character, it's entirely conceivable.
To the point, even, I was reading on IMDb that there's like some images on screens in Enemy of the State of a younger Gene Hackman, and they're 100% stills of the conversation. So it wasn't an accident. Like
I'm sure it was like a cool reference, but yeah, you could totally see that
Jerry
way.
Bruckheimer probably conceived it that way. He's like, hey, what if we like kind of made a sequel to The Conversation, except it stars Will Smith? And it's like, yeah, why not?
Man, I gotta say, like I really love just the process of how they capture like the stuff with their recording equipment in this. It's like,
even though they do it one time,
for something that is low tech and it's not digital, but it still feels very exciting and just clever how it's used, and you're just so fascinated by the process. And it's like, yeah, they do it one time, but it's really cool to watch it.
Well, 3 times. There's 3 different recordings. There's the main one from the titular conversation.
Yeah, but then also how they edit it, in the process of syncing up all those tapes and seeing which one to get into.
There's the pen mic in the middle of the film, and then there's the final oh fuck moment where my apartment might be bugged.
Yeah,
but it's funny, that opening shot, and it's a long one at that, really spectacular. It's the only thing shot in this film not by the actual DP,
by Haskell Wexler.
Yeah, did you read about this story?
I've heard about it. Yeah, that he got fired fairly. I want to say like a few weeks into the process. It's like or maybe about a few days. It's like the reverse Eric Stoltz, where it's not the star but the person behind the camera that gets fired while shooting.
It's kind of bizarre, and it happened twice the same year. Pretty well, like a year. It happened a year or two later. So yeah, Haskell Wexler, which I was like, oh, what, huh? Like I hadn't heard the name, but I guess I'd seen his shit. So he did.
I know in some ways George Lucas is connected to that guy.
Yeah, he was like a designer for the American Graffiti look, I think. I guess the argument happened on this film where he originally wanted to kind of shoot it like the Thomas Crown Affair, like almost like a romance, like artistic way, and Coppola wanted him to shoot it like Medium Cool, a movie they directed, which I've actually seen, and it takes place, I think it's at the Democratic National Convention of 1968, and it's shot in like a cinema verite way where people are actually like cameramen, like newscasters out in the field, and like kind of like a Nightcrawler-esque way. And it's very low budget, very shoestring, very hip. Lots of handheld camera work. There's like a really interesting thing that happens towards the end of that film with like a car accident on the freeway, and just the way it was shot. And so when you see the final product here, it does feel that way, but I guess Wexler didn't want to do that. He wanted a more traditional studio approach, and so that's where they butted heads. But what's more interesting is he was replaced by Bill Butler. So they reshot everything they could except that opening segment because
it's a pain in the ass to block
and
that.
It's so fucking good, why would you redo it, But what's strange is just 2 years later on One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, like a similar thing happened with Vilmos Zsigmond. Not Vilmos, no, that's the wrong fucking person.
Milos Forman.
Yeah,
Forman.
Milos
Yeah.
Forman. So I guess they had a similar conversation, and they fired Wexler, and he was replaced by Bill Butler. So
I wonder if Wexler was hired to work on Jaws and then just quit before shooting.
I don't know. It's
Bill Butler shot Jaws, and that movie was a pain in the ass to shoot. So
there had
it's
to
the Wexler
be
curse.
like a huge joke in town back then, where I was like, why don't we just get Bill Butler to shoot it?
And Wexler doesn't have credit on Days of Heaven. It's and there's big debate on that of who really won the Oscar for Days of Heaven for shooting it, because it's half Wexler, half the other guy, Nestor. I can't remember his name. So yeah, 70s were not kind to Wexler, I guess.
Unsung hero of cinema, I guess.
Yeah, but
like,
his I guess him and his brother Sandy were having a tough time in Hollywood.
it's such a bad joke.
I'm sorry, the opportunity was there. I had to take it.
Sandy Wexler would be way too. I don't know. Maybe they would be about the same age. Now I think about it. Yeah, they were probably about the same age. But it's so strange to think about something like that happening here, like the Eric Stoltz thing, because it looks like it was always meant to feel this way. Just almost like tied
Things
to the
worked
French
out after a
Connection,
certain
like
point.
very.
It's tough to imagine that opening shot though working in. I have not seen the Thomas Crown Affair, but I'm imagining like a '60s just conventional thriller way. Maybe like I don't know, something like Hitchcock in the '60s, maybe, because I want to say he was very influential on that, but I haven't seen it, so I don't know.
And this is pretty close to a Hitchcock movie,
but
too.
it's not, it's not suave or stylistic, or there's no flourishes. This is rougher, like the French Connection, really.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, it's very similar to the French Connection. Like you have not necessarily handheld, but there's no vistas, there's no postcards, no establishing shots. It's just like its
got a very
shoestrings.
gritty, grainy, like just rawness to
Just
it.
put
that
this
is
camera
very much
here,
New
shoot
Hollywood.
it this way. Let's have some really dark lights, like ambience, some shadows. Like nothing seems staged, really. Like it truly feels like guerrilla filmmaking almost. Like it isn't, because of like the audio equipment that are involved and the actors on screen and a couple other things here. And just how tight everything is, how it's so composed so beautifully in the script making, but at the same time, like
It's not a pretty film.
No, there's just
The locations are not exotic. There is a rawness to it.
There's
like,
an energy
maybe a little less
to
so
it.
compared to something like the Fresh Connection, which is like
there's car
I mean,
chases and some
and
some
like,
actual
there's-
foot chases
there's-
and gun violence.
Yeah, like
and,
but it is very close to that. I mean, really though, this is a character piece when you get down to it. Like the surveillance stuff is
it's what hooks you.
really cool. It's really fascinating, but people are surprised whenever I talk about it this way, and that's kind of one of the reasons I wanted to rewatch it, to see if I felt the same way. But one of the ways I would describe this movie right off the bat when you ask me, I find it super fucking emotional.
Oh,
like,
it is,
in a
Gene-
very
Gene
understated
Hackman's
way.
character,
like,
no, it's not
for me,
understated.
like I want to fucking cry while
this
watching
is-
this movie.
well,
That's how emotional it is for me.
The score goes a long way with that. But this is some guy who's the expert in his field. His field is literally listening to other people. He gets emotional about their lives more than he is about his own. You have the Terry
he
Garr
ignores
character.
their lives. He tries not to focus on them.
He tries
like,
not to, but look at his only emotional responses here. You have two characters. You got Terry Garr, who literally is just this like shut in that he like Machiavelli'd that way. I have feelings for you. You know nothing about me. I'm not going to tell you anything about me. I'm just going to drop in unannounced every once in a while, hang out with you. Maybe we have sex and then I leave. So he has that, and then he has his coworker Stan. Frank Cazale? That's his name, right?
John Cazale, yeah,
John
who was
Cazale?
like in 5 movies before he died. Which I mean, like this isn't like
Is
one of the
sad.
great.
I still need to
performances of
see
his, but
Dog Day Afternoon. I still have to see it.
that and what else? There was Deer Hunter, and then there's the other 2 Godfather movies. But it's like,
Yeah.
this may not be one of his best roles, but he still had a hand in one of the best movies in the 70s. Like that dude could have gone on to like. Or I mean, just keep going on, man, because every single movie that he's been in has been great in some way.
So you have Stan, you have this right-hand man that is 100% on the way, like a lapdog, and Gene Hackman's character treats him like shit, like big time, to the point where he has to leave, he abandons him, and jumps ship and starts working at a different surveillance company, and just imagine what it must be like to work with Harry Call, Gene Hackman's character, like on a daily basis, or not even just work with, but be around, is horrible. And you feel this sense of him being a loner, like he knows he has to, like you get these little breadcrumbs where it's like, oh, like I don't have a problem with death. I have something against murder.
Like it's really when you get down to that sequence where that just explains the character in its entirety, where like, this is a guy that is a believer. He does go to church and confesses, and
well,
it's
like
it's
a Coppola film, so of course there's some kind of Catholicism.
Yeah, but like this is where it's so tragic, is that this is someone who basically believes that throughout the entire movie he is worried that his work is going to get 2 people killed.
Yeah,
and that is something that has happened in his past that we find out about. And this is someone who believes that no matter what they do, they will cause harm in some way, and that they're basically a force on Earth that exists only for that purpose, and they cannot have any happiness for themselves. Like, he's like, he says that in that dream when he was a kid, he wouldn't have minded if he drowned, and then he goes on to say the specific thing of, I once punched my dad's friend in the chest, and then a year later he died. And it's like, it's such a small thing, but yet he still feels some guilt for maybe potentially causing some death there in some way. And it's like, I mean, it's so fucking tragic that this guy just feels like every single thing that he's going to do, he has to stay out of people's lives because he will fuck them up in some way. And it's just so sad.
It's like when that dream sequence happens is when I start becoming less a fan of this film. I love it until it becomes a psychological thriller. I love the surveillance angle, how this is just like a portrait of a real unsung hero, essentially. Very interesting.
I think that's the part where you literally get to understand their psyche at that point, and
that's
just what it is that drives them. And it's not.
This film didn't feel
in like
like
an
one of those
obvious way, though.
It didn't feel like a psychological thriller until that stuff started happening, though. Like, literally the dream sequence. So, like, the white noise that goes on with that and the way it cuts differently than the rest of the film. Like, truly, the editing is just chaotic there, whereas in the rest of it, it's, for the most part, like a straightforward, like, old Hollywood way. And then after that, especially when you go to the hotel, when you go to room 773, when you get admitted to that, and I'd already seen some of that sequence before. I might have mentioned this before in passing, either on one of our shows just or in conversation.
Yeah, the sound in that sequence for that big moment like really got to me the first time I saw that. That was a big shocker.
I want to say I was in a class, and I don't remember what we were learning, but it must have been about New Hollywood, and they showed that sequence. Like, I saw the bag like flush out or upwards from the toilet. Like, I saw like the blood splatter on the wall.
Oh, that's terrible.
Even though I didn't exactly remember it, I still knew watching the film this time last night.
You were recognizing it, like, oh, this is what's gonna happen.
Sorta. I knew that he was gonna go to a hotel room at some point. I knew that was going to be a pivotal point. Gladly, it's not that important. It just kind of sells on its cerebral nature, which I guess makes you like conscious as an observer, especially in the closing images of this film, where things could go if someone were listening to you at any given moment, which is very much so a possibility, not just at the time of this film, but now, as you said, it's timeless in that aspect. But maybe it's because Francis Ford Coppola was so busy on The Godfather Part 2, editing that, and how much he had to work on that the editor truly had free reign, like, and final cut on this thing in a way. But, like, those final 25, 30 minutes, when it truly stops being linear, when it kind of jumps around with jump cutting, and, like, you start questioning things, like, it kind of feels like a Polanski film almost, or like David Lynch, or...
I can see that, especially for where the hotel bit goes.
It almost was like the Shining's hotel, like, room sequence.
For the first time watching it, though, there was definitely this sense of dread, and like I was totally invested in his fear that he was going to bring harm to these 2 people, which ultimately it ends up being something different. We can mention that later, but I mean, like, just as far as like his perspective, I mean, the stuff with the blood in the toilet, I'm not so sure if I thought about it, it's like, is that something that is,
I think he's imagining
this movie going a bit overboard? I feel like he has to be, like, he
had to imagine that,
because he punishes
and the blood
himself
on the window.
He punishes himself so much in this, and like just doesn't allow himself to like really get many moments of like peace or enjoyment, that like I feel like he's seeing it in a certain way that he's pushing it. I mean, that's what's so sad about this character, though, is like, he shuts himself in alone. Like, and every time that he's about to open up, like, I mean, the moment when they're back at his garage, right? Which is probably like a good 20 to 30 minutes for the movie, I think. It's a good quarter of it.
20,
it's amazing how quick that goes, and yet it's actually pretty long when you look at it. But
yeah, the party.
But yeah, like, he goes to the party. He's pretty quiet. He's locking up all of his stuff right when he gets there. He opens up to this woman that's there at the party, which is a huge fucking moment for him. Keeps on drinking a little bit, and he becomes a little bit more talkative and starts bragging a little bit. Seems to enjoy himself,
no,
as
he's straight
he's
on
talking
dancing with
about.
her.
Yeah, no, but like even as they go on, like how they talk about the process of doing that recording out in that courtyard, and like he's sharing bits of information, and like just kind of bragging about how much of a hotshot he is, and it isn't like until. Like he seems to be owning the space, and then when it's fucking taken away from him, that's when Harry just goes back to the spot that he was at, where like it's a fucking double whammy in the worst way. Where he got fucking bugged, and it's a huge invasion of his privacy, and it's like, okay, no, he could not be that cocky or confident. He just let slip for 1 second, and so then he reverts back immediately to just going back to this fucking, this guy that basically has a stick up his ass, that kind of guy.
I think it's more so that he doesn't trust anyone, and
yeah, I know, and it's like
he's super trusting in this moment. He trusts this girl. Obviously, he's opening up to her verbally, emotionally.
That too. It's like that's the second
doesn't exactly
fucking nail in the coffin, where he just like he's opening up, and he lets himself get out there. Twice it happens, one in a small way, the other one in a very intimate way, and then it bites him in the ass both times. And it's like you totally see why this guy is stuck in the way that he is, and it's really, really fucking sad.
Well, it's like, especially given the moment that is used as playback from the bug, that this dickhole Moran, who isn't even competition, but he thinks he is, literally recorded the most intimate moment in his life, possibly. In
this movie, for sure.
Definitely in the movie.
It's a big deal for that character in that moment, and it, because that this is a very private moment for these two specifically, and then to find out, oh no, it's on there for display for everybody to see. Like, that is fucking humiliating, and just it's so sad. Like, and that's the moment where the party fucking ends. At that point, he can't have a good time, and really,
if that happened to you,
when he tries to be with people, it's like,
if that happened to anyone, you would fucking, especially if it's your house that they're throwing the party, anyone would fucking throw a hissy fit. Let me get this straight. We're in the business of bugging people. You bugged me at my own party. That's a no-no, man. Like,
but what makes this worse
cool.
is that this is a very big thing for him to admit. Something he's probably hasn't admitted to another woman in his life.
Yeah.
And it's not that big of a detail to us, but for someone that's this super private and is trying to make an effort throughout it, because this is really there's several moments where this title could literally be about just the titular conversation that they open, but it's also in a way just about him trying to start a conversation in some way, trying to make the steps to get out there and open up to meet people, and every time that he does it, there's something that forces him to wrap himself back in the cocoon, and it really you just feel for the guy every time it happens.
It's like we're talking about Lex Luthor here, if you're late to the episode. We're talking about Harry Caul, the Gene Hackman. It's kind of interesting when you think about it. He hasn't, to the best of my knowledge, hasn't been in a big Hollywood production in quite some years now. It was since the mid-2000s. He was in The Score, which is really good. No, that's Robert De Niro. He's in the other one. Fuck, what's the other one? It's also a heist. It's called Heist. There you go. But outside of Heist, I can't think of the last time I saw Gene Hackman on screen at all.
No, he's retired.
Did he retire?
Yeah.
Huh. Well, that makes sense then. You'd only act for so long. And when you give yourself 100% in a film like he does here, and this is, 40 years ago now, it makes sense. This is, out of what I've seen him in, the least like him. He's a laughable guy. He's larger than life. Big smile.
I think he said this was tough for him to really get into the role, because he's just nothing like this character whatsoever.
He really is.
It's the complete opposite of Popeye Doyle too, who's just such a hard ass in The French Connection.
Or fucking Lex Luthor. He was cast in that just a year or two after this, and it's night and day. It really is. Like this is
He
almost
plays it so freaking well here.
this is almost Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor.
Uh,
Like it's almost like no over the top shit going on, but just in terms of like the character himself and his fears, and he doesn't trust anyone. And
well, you know, a billionaire being over the top, I don't think is implausible
Yeah.
to me. But I mean, you know, then again, well, I don't know. There was no such thing as LepsCorp in the Donner ones, was there?
no, he was a fucking poor
Yeah,
dude that lived in a subway. Like just
Yeah.
the weirdest version of Lex Luthor in all of those original Superman. Even in the Superman Returns film, like that's just not Lex Luthor. Like not he's supposed to be a mogul.
No, it's the same. It's the same one.
Yeah.
I mean, that one's just a dude that is based off Hackman's version. I think is a continuation of that and just gets money from this rich widow.
That's a shame. So I don't have many problems with this film, but like I mentioned, I don't like the dream. Right before the dream happens is when I start going, what the fuck is going on in this film? Like the last 25 minutes or something. When literally, you know, he has this conversation with the girl, he gets bugged, he kicks everyone out. She stays for reasons unknown. Like, it's like, why would she stay with him? That's kind of weird. She fucks him, basically seduces him. He has the dream while she's there with him. And then, to make it even worse, when he wakes up, she's gone, the tapes are gone, and it's implied that either she was working for the company that he was doing the surveillance for, or someone broke into his place, which is unlikely, while he was
I am
asleep.
pretty sure that she did it, and that's why she would have stayed. But also at that point within the narrative, she is the one that's backing him up when he says get out, and she's just kind of like, yeah, go guys. Like I think she literally says that she'll stay with him, you know, and that was a moment of privacy where from his perspective it does seem like, you know, that was violated too for her, and you know they were connecting at that point. So in a way, like her, I would say, like, you know, her staying there seemed like more like a gesture of comfort.
That's what
And
I don't like though. Like, where do we?
I don't mind that. I totally
No,
buy
not
that.
that.
You know?
It's the aftermath, right? So
Oh yeah, it's a total blow. And
it's
it
like
really sucks.
no,
but-
I'm saying even beyond that. This is some person that he knows. He clearly is colleagues with, not necessarily her, but her employer. If you just had maybe not a one night stand, but you just hooked up with someone, they fucking dicked you hard, stole like your prized possession and gave it to someone. You're still getting paid, so it's not that big a deal. And then, you know, a couple of minutes later, you find out that you got bugged in your own home. You're not gonna. I want to see the scene. Maybe it's cut. Like I think something like the director's cut is like 4.5 hours or something fucking ridiculous.
There's a director's cut for this.
I don't think you can find it, but it was like the original, basically assembly. Okay, like the original running time was like 4 hours. I want to see him call this girl, be like, "Hey, did you have a good time fucking me the other night? Because you fucked me twice. First with my clothes off, and then with my clothes on. I want my tapes. Like, I want
First
that
off, I don't think
conversation.
this character would say that, and
I think
don't
he
think
would.
they even got phone numbers.
He would. His business is surveillance. If Harrison Ford can find his phone number, you don't think that he can find this girl's number?
Well, he's got to find her name first. I
He
don't know.
knows her.
Does he have that?
Trust, like I said, he.
I don't know
is
if there's enough
colleagues
information
with her
presented
employer
within the story. I don't doubt that he could, as a character, figure it out, but I don't think there's enough information presented in this story in the way that's presented to us.
He would
where
they were
we get
comfortable
enough
with each other.
necessarily.
They knew each other.
For one night.
No,
Like,
for
it's
one
a
night
one-night
that
stand.
no, for one night that we see, they clearly
Yeah.
knew one another. Like it wasn't a let
That
me.
wasn't clear to me. For me, it was just a one-night stand. They
When-
mentioned like
when
a
Moran
previous
does
party after
his-
convention the year before where they did the same thing.
Yeah, like Moran being like in the same realm, them meeting up several times. I was led to believe that this girl has worked for him for some time. That it might even be like his like steady thing on the side when he's on the road. I don't know. I just that's when I start looking at things through like not rosy tinted glasses. The fact, like I said, the dream sequence happens with her.
I
the
feel
falling
like that's
out
wish
with
fulfillment
her.
where you would want him to be the guy to like call
Not
her
even
out
just
like
that,
that.
it's
But he's
just-
got, I mean, you know, that there's a lot of other things going on in his mind where, you know, this is a guy that's Catholic. I do feel like even for that one night stand, he feels like a bit guilty of that. The first time he confesses in confession, he doesn't say I've had relations with women. He says I'm guilty of impure thoughts. So to him, for presumably have sex with someone one night, like, that's a big fucking deal for him if he's just
I don't
gonna
know.
feel bad about impure thoughts
I
solely.
mean, what's worse? Basically extortion. Like You have a deal with someone to survey a target. You go back on it. You hold that material. You wait. You get the money, and then you have a guilty
Well,
conscience
granted, though,
for some
like
reason. It's like
everything about that deal, like just based on how we understand it too, it's fishy. Like right off the bat, how just I mean, he has the arrangement specifically to see Robert Duvall. Then he goes to the office. Harrison Ford escorts him and says like, "Oh, he'll see you in a few minutes," and then waits at the desk, baits him with that cookie, and then just grabs the tapes themselves. Like, you know, right off the bat, it's impossible for this guy to trust anybody. And then the second he lets his guard down, he gets fucked. Like that's the world that Harry Cole is in. He just can't trust anybody. That's how, I mean, and that's just sad, like the way that the movie presents it. There's not.
Speaking of, we've used that name several times. It's spelled Caul. It happens one time in the film. No, his name is Harry Cole. Harry means there's something fishy going on. Call meaning it's bugged. This is a Harry Call. Like that's like too on the nose. Never name
it. Works, I think.
It does work. It's just the weirdest, like almost laughable character name in this film that you kind of forgive because it's a very serious movie. But it's like, oh, that's like the one joke that's going on right here. Among others, it's so
I
weird.
think it's a nice touch, just because like when you say the name and you don't know what the point of it is, like, or just a little in joke in there, it works as a common name.
It's a weird name choice, but really moving on to the final moment here when you're in that hotel room and the film kind of unravels. It really saves itself when you get the final scene, in my opinion. But those final like 25 minutes where things really, really become chaotic, between going to the hotel and you're not sure if you're seeing things that are actually happening or it's his psyche or his guilt or whatever. Like, did he actually witness the murder? Like, what's going on? Was someone even murdered to begin with?
Yeah.
Like the limo, him showing up in the office. Oh, here's the tapes. And then when it all like culminates or like congeals into him being at home and getting the phone call from Harrison Ford saying, "Oh, we have a dossier on everyone. Let me play back you playing your saxophone in your room." It's like, well, he tore up his whole fucking house. He freaked out. He even broke his proof that he's not like a serious Catholic.
Well, keep in mind that, you know, even though it's joked about as a device, they talk about Moran's device where you dial the phone number and then you wait a few seconds, play the harmonica. I mean, the first time he gets the call, he hangs up, and then he goes back to just playing jazz. But you know, the assumption to me is that activated some sort of recording device within the phone or like some mic in there, and then they captured it and they played it back for him.
Maybe.
You know, I don't know the technical specifications of it, but that's basically the best I could come up with there.
I think it's more like just because I can't trust the film after a certain point. Once they go and have the party in his factory or whatever you want to call it, his bat cave, that's when there isn't a trustworthy narrator. Like the perspective is unhinged, that it is no longer in the realm of reality, that there is psychological factors at play, that it becomes more of a thriller.
I do like the thriller aspects of it, like nearly, especially in the last third, it works as entertainment, the stuff with the hotel, and then the final payoff that you get, or the reveal of what the conversation at the beginning was actually about. But, you know, when you get to that ending, like just of him ripping the apartment and he can't find the bug, that to me is far more chilling. Just this idea that, you know,
moment.
Like, I mean,
I'm
you can be spied on, and like, I mean, well, that's the entire point. But then, like, I think it doesn't feel so cheesy when it pays off to that you could be watched or they could be listening to you, and you wouldn't even know how they're doing it. Like, you know, the presumption right now is like, I think it's easier now to assume these things based on smartphones or any device that could be connected to the internet. You know, even this microphone that I'm speaking into right now that is being cataloged on some database somewhere, some drive somewhere in the world, you know, just because we know more about these things now. But like back then, like just this idea that, hey, you could be looked in on and you wouldn't even know it. And like, even then, like, you know, the device may not even be in his room. It could be on the floorboards of the room above for all we know. Like, it's really chilling. Just this idea, like, there is no such thing as privacy.
It's like I said, the film ends on a really great note. It has that like great final shot, and
takes comfort in the one thing that he can trust, which is jazz and his saxophone.
Not even talking about that. It's just more so I might have issues with the film, but the way it kind of summarizes with, oh, there is no answer, it just ends, and that he might have done some fucked up things. This might have not happened, but this is still what he went through. That if you know, like your own mind is your worst enemy in most situations, because whatever you think could happen is worse than any possibility. Like that's like the true horror of the real world, you know.
I still feel like his horrors, though, did come to fruition, just not in the ways that he expected. And it's like, you know, he is still somewhat, I don't know, he feels somewhat responsible for what happens in the end, even though he isn't in any way.
No,
but
he's
yeah,
what are you talking about? He's 100% responsible. He played, well, it's weird
he
without
played back the tape, but it was only a conversation where they were planning on killing.
I don't even mean the conversation, but in terms of he was hired to do a job, he did the job 100%, even if he, you know, did it and he was getting played the whole time, if it was a switcheroo. But at the same time, if he hadn't been hired, if there was no recording, Robert Duvall wouldn't have went to the hotel room. He would have not got killed, if he got killed at all, you know. So it's he is guilty. Like he's guilty for the murder that happened before that, and he's especially guilty for the way that he treats people, even the ones that care about him.
It's questionable because I guess, yeah, because that was Robert Duvall's wife. For whatever reason, like, I was thinking daughter throughout the film, but then I realized, like, wait, no, that's totally the wife. They even mentioned that, the newscasters and
he has
everyone in that room. But yeah, like, it's funny, like, I mean, if I go back, I probably could pick it out specifically, but you are seeing this through, like, just the bits and pieces that Harry Cole is exposed to throughout. So it's not entirely clear-cut to me, but there's enough, I guess, there that you connect with it. But still, like, it's just sad, man. Like, as I just of basically, this is a character piece of just someone that's basically doomed in this life where they, you know, he can't kill himself or do anything. Like, you know, is very religious, tries to follow these things, but every time he tries to do something good for himself, it backfires, and every time he does something, it's gonna hurt somebody else. Like it's a very sad existence to live.
I think it's more accurate to say. I think it's more accurate to say that this is a film where our perspective is whatever Harry lets us see, because when you throw in the subconscious, if we're seeing his dreams, you know, which only happens after he opens up to us or the other characters, mostly us. One of the only moments where I felt like we had a true naked connection, like a one-on-one, just it's clear cut that there isn't any shielding going up, that he isn't keeping things from us or we're keeping it from him, are those final moments when he is stripping all the floorboards and wallpaper and taking off the chandeliers and everything, when he completely removes everything from his existence. And as you pointed out, you know, he has at least a saxophone, which is funny because he didn't check his saxophone. That could have been what was bugged. Or I think
it could have been, yeah.
I think what Coppola
That's true, the one thing that he has any emotional connection to, and he wouldn't check it.
It's like Coppola, apparently his
that could very well be it now that you say it.
His conclusion is that either it's the strap that the saxophone is held onto, or it's all in his mind and he was never bugged to begin with, which would make more sense in the film, just because, like I said, once things really
when
get
you see
going,
the stuff with the toilet and all that,
like it's can we actually take this at face value? Is this happening? Which isn't one of my favorite things in cinema. I like true films, not psychological explorations, but it works really well. It's a very effective movie. It's shot brilliantly. It has a great score. The acting is unparalleled, especially for these like bit roles from people that went on to go places. We were talking about Harrison Ford for a minute. He was supposed to be like a 5-second role, kind of like Apocalypse Now, and then he gets a very chunky role. You get Terry Garr, who sadly in only one scene when she's really good here. This is like right at the beginning of her career. I think Young Frankenstein was like a year before this, so she really hadn't done anything yet. Mr. Mom is like 10 years after this, which is still totally underrated.
Never saw it.
I love her. I wish I don't know if she's got the right people to do comedy still, but great comedic timing. She was totally underrated in the 80s. Tootsie, I know you haven't seen that. It's her and Dustin Hoffman. Great chemistry. Yeah, everything here it's a very, very solid movie. Like I said, I'm not a Coppola fan. I like his daughter's films on the most part more than I like his, but I can't knock it. It really throws away a lot of like the pro-Italian stuff that The Godfather has, or like family dynamics, or any of like these long gestating themes or storylines. It's not an adventure. This is just a single moment in one guy's life that just so happens to be very interesting, and there's a lot to take away from it. It's really just a marvelous movie. It truly is special, even if I don't like all of it. I think the fact that I had issues with some of the stuff is just it's an example of how good it is, that I wanted to like it more than I did, and yet I'm totally forgiving, which is a true sign.
This is a total buy for me, but I mean, yeah, something that just doesn't really, I don't feel like it's giving you clear-cut explanations, and like in some ways can throw you off, but then again, there's enough threads there that you can connect different interpretations out of that. Just, I mean, because it's very weird how I think I'm more interested in like just in seeing this final third of the movie more as just like the stuff of like just a straight thriller that's paying off, and it is exciting to me in that way. But yeah, at the same time, there is a lot of weird stuff where you do have to think about it and go like, well, yeah, how the fuck does that tie in with it? Because that tends to be the stuff where, especially just on the final note of this movie, I tend to forget that as I try to like really nail the impression that this makes on me, and like it has to be brought up, and I'll be like, oh yeah, wait a minute, actually, what the fuck was up with the blood coming out of the toilet?
It's weird.
But I mean, yeah, just just as a character piece, like it's very, very emotional for me and just heartbreaking to watch, and that's not something that I commonly hear about this movie when people talk about it or they mention it, but that is the experience that I have with it, and it's a very beautiful, very sad movie for me, just based on Hackman's performance and that score, and just like of just this guy that's trying to get out there and just connect, and it doesn't get the chances, kind of like locked into the work that he's doing, and at the same time he's doing something very extraordinary that makes for a really fascinating plot that's just really thrilling to see unravel. Yeah, this is a total buy for me, man.
Yeah, I'd buy it for $1 too, and it's not even worth that, or better than that. You don't have to spend it to see it, because as of right now, it's on Amazon Prime, so you can see it if you're a subscriber. That's how I did it. It's not the best digital copy, but it's good enough.
It's standard def, too. That's the thing.
Yeah, it's worth your time. If you haven't seen it, if you're a fan of Coppola's films, which means the 3 that you're aware of, unless you're a fan of Jack 2, yeah, please watch it, give it a chance, let us know what you thought, and let us know if you agree or disagree with what we had to say. Thanks for listening. We hope it's been a pleasure. If you like this show and you want to hear more of our wonderful voices on a weekly basis, check out 2 Cents. I'll recap what's happened in film, TV, and tech news.
We're also on the titular Dollar Review Show, a spoiler-free critique of new releases or anything we've discovered on our own, whether that be TV, music, etc.
You can find all of our content at dollarreviews.net. Follow us on Twitter or like us on Facebook at Dollar Reviews.
And we're also on Google Play Music, iTunes, Pocket Cast, TuneIn, Stitcher, SoundCloud, YouTube, just about anywhere on the internet, with hours of content available to you for free. But for those of you that feel that the show is worth your dollar, you can send us a donation at patreon.com/dollarreviews. Contributions not only earn our undying love, but they also make it possible for us to improve our recording equipment and to give you the highest quality episodes possible. But more importantly, they'd be helping us acquire the content to review. Trips to the multiplex are expensive, and the more donations we receive, the more films we can review for your listening pleasure.
If you listen somewhere we're currently not available, you'd like to contribute some talking points, send a Death to Cinema request, or if you just want to laugh at us, you can do so by reaching out to us on social media or send an email to brian@dollarreviews.net.
Or you can email me as well, steve@dollarreviews.net.
You can follow me personally on Twitter at Brian Gillis, that's BRYONGILLIS, and now you know how to spell the email too, and also under the same name on the lovely site Letterboxd, which acts as my film diary, where I rate films that I'm watching, write the occasional review, and even sometimes compile lists.
You can also find me on Twitter at S_MTX, and also follow my film diary at Letterboxd under the same name, where I log everything I watch, and sometimes write brief reviews.
That's it for this week. Until next time, keep the change.